Hi guys, and welcome back here to the Dev Realm, and today we are carrying on our MMORPG series. And if you guys remember what we did here in the last episode, is that we have created a really nice, we started to do the application. Now, what we'd like to do here today is start to program our way into the system, right? And the first thing we need to do here is that we are gonna basically need to go to our, let's say, Laravel app. And by the way, if you guys have Copilot running, it will make your life way easier to run with this, all right? Copilot, for those who doesn't know, it's just a AI that I paid a subscription for, which allows me to write code and helps me. And I'm probably going to be using the Copilot a lot here to help me out writing those classes and stuff. It's also more productive as well. But anyway, now what I would like to do here is I'm going to make exec. So I'm going to run inside a container. And we need to create here, basically, we need to just adjust this table here on Laravel to, instead of being name, just to be username, all right? So what I would like to do here is that I'm going to go back to my, let's say, database. And here I have a couple of migrations, right? Here I have, let's say, users. I have a couple of things. I'm just going to change this to be called user name. And I'm going to make sure that this is unique. I don't like two users with the same, let's say, username. And that's fine. We have password resets. We have session stable. That's great. Now, the next thing I want to do, I'm going to go back to my Laravel. I'm going to go back to my models. I'm going to go back to users. And I am going to change name, right? And the name here, I'm just going to add username. And I think that's all we need to do here, right? Now, the next thing we're going to do here is that I am just going to run PHP artisan migrate fresh. That will basically rerun all the migrations that I have, everything from fresh. And if I reload on my PHP admin, I have the username there. Great. That's all we need to do here for now. Now, the next step that I would like to do here is that we have to fix a couple of problems, right? We have at the moment two main ways to access the server. We have our login screen and we have our register endpoint. So we need to create a way for the user to register his informations, and then we can create this so he can access our application. Now, to do that, what I'm going to do here is that I am going to basically go to our, let's see, routes here. And I am going to create, let's say, actually the best thing I'm going to do here, the easy way to do that, is that I'm going to run PHP artisan make, all right? And here's going to have a list of things that I can create for my Laravel application. In this case, I want to create a controller that will handle our authentication flow, login, register, all that stuff. So I am going to just copy this from PHP artisan make controller. And we are going to call, yeah, that's right, user controller. And this is going to be, let's say, let's start with the API for now. What model should this API? So we can probably use user, and there you go. So Laravel created for us a controller. So if you go back to HTTP user controller, I should have here, let me zoom out a little bit. Should have all those data to create, delete, and do all sorts of things. Right, so what I want to do now is that I want to create an endpoint that will allow me to register the user, all right? So I'm going to ignore everything that has been created here. So I'm just going to delete all this. I'm just going to leave the store one, all right? And since this is a very specific route, I am just going to call this register, all right? And then that's it. That's all we're going to do here. And then we can change the name here to, let's say, register a new user. Yeah, thanks Copilot. And now what I'm going to be doing here is that I'm going to be using my, let's say, user here to proper create my user model to create the user, right? So now what I am going to do here is that I have here registers, right? So requests. What I can do here is that I can do PHP artisan, let's say make request, all right? And then we have the request. We're gonna call this, let's say, register user request, all right? Now we open up our user request and it's inside requests. Great. Now we have rules that we can apply. We have a bunch of things, but I'm gonna copy the name and I'm gonna paste it right here. And I'm gonna right click and I'm gonna import. By the way, if you don't have all those access and importing classes and all this stuff like I do, that's because you're probably missing a couple of things on your on your VS Code. If you're brand new to VS Code, you may have like everything empty and all this stuff's not working. So the only thing I recommend you install right now, right, is just go back to extensions, and here you're gonna search for PHP, all right? Now, when you search for PHP, I really recommend installing this extension called PHP DevSense. It's free. You don't have to pay anything, but it has all the things you need for PHP. IntelliSense, actions, and a bunch of cool stuff that we use to set up here. All right. Anyway, I'm just gonna close this for now. I'm gonna go back, and now that I have all that stuff set up, right, I can actually do requests and actually handle my data here. Now, for the rules here, we basically need to tell what is the key and how we can validate. If I open up my user, I have name and I have email and I have password. So I'm gonna copy all that stuff here. I'm gonna go back in here, I'm gonna paste all that stuff. And basically, what I want to do here is that I will basically just make sure that the username is required, is a string, is max, and most important of all, must be unique and must be users. And that's going to be, let's say, username. So that basically is a rule that will allow us to basically say, I only want to create unique users. Now for the password, let's see what Copilot comes up. So we're going to create a required, make sure it's a string and a email. We're going to make sure it's max 25 characters and that it's a unique email user as well. Now the password, make sure it's a string and the minimum is 8, and the password, we could, create a super strong validation, but I really don't recommend creating that because at this point, we don't need to worry about this. All right. So I'm going to save this stuff and I'm going to go back here to my controller. All right. And I am going to do DD of my, let's say, request. And here I'm going to do the DD of the request all. Just request all basically gets all the inputs that we need from our request. All right. Now let's test this. So to test this, there's a couple of ways. Or you could test using Unreal, or we can test for development purposes. We're going to test here using Postman. But before I test it, let's just create our route for this. So I'm going to go back to my web, all right? And I am going to call, let's say, let me just search for a snippet that I have, which is called route group control. That's the one. All right. So let me just copy the name of this route here. I'm going to go back right here, paste it, import, right? And that's what you guys are going to do. So you're going to create a route controller, and between brackets, you're going to put a user controller class. You're going to put arrow group, and then we're going to create a function, parentheses. You're going to create the parentheses open and closing. And then inside, we're going to do this here. This is just an example, of course. Now the name that we're going to call this is going to be register. All right. And that's it. and we're gonna call the method. If you check here, we have a callback, and the callback is the method that we are calling, and the method is gonna be inside our controller. It's called register. All right. I think you can use. I think the string's the best, but anyway. And here we're gonna do arrow name register, which is just the name of the route. Now on my Laravel, if I run php artisan route list, all right, we have here register, we have store, and we have up, right? So let me double check. So this is something that I don't need to worry for now, but the one I want is just this. It's just this Laravel register, and we're gonna post a couple of data for this, right? I don't have Postman installed, so let's go back here to our Google and let's download Postman, all right? And on Postman, we're gonna just get started for free. I'm gonna download the Windows version. While it downloads, I'm just gonna sign up with my account, and then once I'm all signed up here, it shouldn't be a problem. So let's go back to while does that decide to run. So now I am downloading Postman, and once I have Postman installed, I'm just gonna resume the video. All right, guys. Yeah, so I am just resuming the video. I have now downloaded Postman. So let's go now to this installation of Postman. So what Postman is gonna do for us here is that basically we're gonna hit this register endpoint. You're gonna be able to, do actions on that. I think the only thing that we need to do here is that we just need to put post. Let me just change that to post. And now we should get an error saying that the method is not supported. Please use post. That's all we're looking for. And I think the middleware that we need to use here is just web. Syntax error on. No, that's fine. No, that's fine. All right. I don't know why it's saying syntax error, but anyway. Now I'm gonna log in on my Postman. That's gonna basically identify myself here. And yeah, I'm gonna allow, open up. Let's just create our Postman requests. And by the way, we don't have to use Postman. If you guys have a better, option to use, feel free to use it. I'm just using Postman because it's easy to work. But anyway, now I'm gonna right click here, and I am gonna create a new collection. All right, and this is gonna be called, let's say, MMO request. Nice. So now inside the collection, we can start to mess around and send data to our Laravel application. So I'm gonna right click. And here, I want to create a new request, as you can see here. And I'm just gonna copy and paste this URL right there. And now I'm gonna change this method to post. And I'm gonna save it inside the MMO request. I am just gonna rename this to call register, right? And I'm gonna press send. Now we should have a let's see, we have an error here, right? That basically say preview page expired. It's pretty much what we're looking for, is because it doesn't have a CRF token. So we're just gonna remove this middleware, and let's press and send the request. So now we also have, let's see, this page requested. Right. So what we need to do here is that we need to allow our request to send data without this something that we call CRF token, right? So let me double check if I can use middleware of guest, right? Send. All right, guys. Yeah, so I'm just resuming here a couple of changes that I had to do. So the first thing that I had to do here, just to get this thing working properly, it's just make sure you go to your terminal and you run php artisan install API. All right. So So that will basically update your composer. It will bring everything that we need to do. It's going to say that the file already exists. In my case, yes. I just want to override with everything. And everything will be created for you, right? Now, the next thing that we need to do here is that we're going to create an API file for us, right? And basically, I'm just going to comment this first line. And I am going to copy this stuff here. And I'm going to paste it right there, okay? And basically, what that's going to allow us to do is that it's going to basically create a new route for us. And now if I run php artisan route list, I should have the register. Note that it has an API. For this one, I just want to comment it out, and I just want to leave this one here, right? Now what we need to do is just to remove this middleware. I don't need a middleware anymore. I'm going to run php route list, okay? And here, what we got to do is that we need to now go. I think that's fine, right? Yeah, that's fine. We're going to copy this URL. And we're going to go back to our Postman. And we're going to just type register. Now, authorization, we don't need it at this point. The headers, I think we have, let's say, application, accept headers. It's called JSON, application JSON. And let me just double check. Yeah, the application here on our MMO request, we just need to add content type. So content type. So this will allow us to return JSON from the Laravel. So Laravel knows. Now if I press send, we're gonna have a 404, right? On your case, if you have, let's say, on our controller here, if I open up my register, if this is set to false, we're gonna have, let's say, this action. This is an unauthorized action. So I'm just gonna set this to true, all right? And on the rules, for now, I'm just gonna comment those two lines and see if we can get a request. So we are not getting our request. Maybe if I do that, we are getting the request. Probably the reason why we're not getting the request is because we have some kind of validation that's not really returning. So what I could do here is that since now we're sending the password, right? If I go back to my Postman, and look how cool is this. So if I go back here to the form data and I send, let's say, password, right? And I type, let's say, test, right? Now I should be able, let me just refresh that. Require the string. That's because it's a validation error. So let me just put a random password, press send. Look at that. We have the password now on our request. This probably is happening because when we extend from the form helper, we do have something in here that, returns validation. What is it? 404 passes validator, validation data, validation rule, validate. Well, anyway, I'll just leave it here as it is for now. Okay. Now, the next thing that we need to do here in order for this to properly run, okay, is that on the Postman, we need to put our username, and I'm just going to call, let's say, Unreal Engine send. And now the email, right? Email, we're just going to send Unreal Engine at gmail.com or something. Right. Send the data. Cool. Now, on our, let's say, user controller, we are getting that data. All I got to do here is that I'm just going to uncomment everything. And by the way, if you're getting a 404, means that we are validating this properly. The next thing I'm going to do here, maybe for the next lesson or the next one, is just to create a way to display those messages back to you. But anyway, so now we have this data that's sending up, and we need to basically create a user. And to create a user, it's something very simple. We have the user here. We're going to create a variable in PHP, and you always start with the $sign, and we're going to do user equals new, and we're going to create a user, right? Now, what we're going to do here is that we're going to do user name, that's fine, email, and the password, and we're going to save. All right, Copilot pretty much did everything for us, but there's one thing that's wrong. We're not using name anymore. We're using username. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to just duplicate here and replace that. Nice. Now, what I want to do here is that I just want to return, let's say, a JSON response. We already have it here. And we're going to return a message saying user registered successfully. And we return a 201, which means it's created. And now, look at this. So if you go back and press, let's say, send, it returns as a message saying user has been created successfully, which is great. Now look, the best thing is that if we check on our database and refresh, we have a user created right here. All right. We have also this email verified at. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete this for now. And also on Laravel here, I'm going to make sure that when we register the user, I'm going to do arrow verified at equals, and then I'm going to call this method called now. All right. Which is something that allows us to return the current date. Now, if I go back here and I press send, I have registered successfully, and I can refresh the data, and now I have a new user. And that's basically what we're going to be using here on our Unreal Engine to, create new users, return us that user has been created successfully, and then you can use that password or username to log in on the screen. Now, before I wrapped up for today, let's just create here quickly our login, right? So I'm gonna just create here public, and this is gonna be a function, and it's gonna be called login, right? And here we're gonna have our credentials. Actually, this is pretty good, actually, but I'm just going to leave it like this. So we're going to create a login. All right. We're going to get our credentials, and we're going to only get the email and the password, which is fine. And we are going to get our auth. And by the way, the auth is basically returns our guard, right? In Laravel, we have something here on the Bootstrap, I believe, on the app. We have our middlewares. And we have here on the providers, we have configurations for our auth methods. Here, for example, we have a guard called web that they use users, and we have another one called, let's say, different guards, right? But what we're basically doing here is that we're trying to use the default one, which is, I think, is the old factory, which is basically return the default auth. That's what we're doing. But anyway, now that we have this stuff here, we return the user has been logged in successfully or something. We kind of need to create a token that will allow us to use the user to access our application using Laravel Sanctum. All right. So now that we basically have this user here, right, we need to go back to, let's say, our user model. And we has a factory authentication. I think that's everything that we needed here. That's fine. Before we test it here, let's go back to our API. And let's create here, copy and paste that. I'm just going to create another route called login. All right. And that's going to be login. That's great. I'm going to copy that. Let's double check we have the same here. I'm just going to do DD, which stands for dump and die here. And now on our register, I'm going to duplicate, let's say, this register form. I'm going to create one here for, it's going to be called login. And now I'm just going to call login, and I am going to go to the body. I'm just going to basically, I'm going to save them. I'm going to save this one, and we're going to send our username. All right. And it's going to be Unreal Engine. I think that's how we called our, let me double check here. I mean, we can use both either email or username. I'm just going to use the username. Yeah, it's more common nowadays to use the username. But anyway, we're going to save. And when we send it, we should see a DD on our screen. So if I change on preview, I have password. Actually, email. That's not, let me just change that to email. As you can see, the username is not present because we are only getting certain values from that. Right. Cool. We have our email, we have our password. And now I can try to get our session on. What we're going to do here is that in the next video, we're going to create a Xantum token, which is basically a token that we're going to give to the user saying, you can use this token now to do requests for my server. But once again, guys, thank you very much for watching. We are getting very close to the end of our series. This tutorial has been very, I think I added a lot of time and took a lot of things to make sure you guys understand everything. And I hopefully you guys have been, been enjoying the tutorial so far. So once again, thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next one.